space is a place for us.
Real people with real issues.
Discussing real topics.
Black space.
A safe space for our community.
He had more than 1.4 million subscribers to his YouTube channel, where he dished out dating, relationship, and lifestyle advice. He also had 1.2 million followers on his Instagram account and more than 39,000 Twitter followers. His opinions could be polarizing. Samuel's advice on love and lifestyle was not for everyone and received criticism for his comments about Black women and dating. The influencer sparked outrage among some last month after stating in one of his YouTube videos that unmarried women 35 and older were leftover women. In his last video posted to Instagram entitled, "Modern Women Are a Party of One," Samuels was critical of college-educated women who choose to not settle in relationships. He stated, "Why are so many modern women holding out? What are you holding out for? Whatever it is, ladies, it ain't working, and the net result of it is you become a party of one." He got it started in public relations. Before launching his YouTube channel, Samuels worked in public relations and image consulting and recommended fragrances and shoes for men to attract women. So, before we get into the meat and the heat of this discussion, I want the watchers and listeners to know the contenders in the ring today. We have an exciting panel of highly powerful minds, voices, and personalities that are destined to make this a very lively exchange of thoughts and perspectives tonight. So, beginning with Ms. Janelle and going around the panel, please introduce yourself and tell the audience anything you think they should know about you.
Sure. Hi, everyone. Pleasure to be here. I am in Augusta, Georgia. I live here with my husband, and we have a 20-month-old daughter. I'm originally from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, lived in DC, went to college there, lived in Dallas, Texas, and also Miami. So pretty much been working my way around the world here, settling down here in Georgia. Excited to be here and get to know everyone and add to the commentaries for this evening.
Awesome. Great to have you.
Thank you.
Russell?
I'm Russell. I'm originally from Atlanta. Right now I'm in Vegas for the past 6 years. Been working with the government, either both on county and federal level for the past 20 plus years. Looking forward to a nice discussion, hearing everyone's points of views on Kevin Samuels, and have the conversation. I'm always up for a good debate.
All right. And last but not least, Mr. Lamar Penny Finley.
Lamar Finley, everyone calls me Penny, childhood nickname, from the beautiful Orlando, Florida. Former lobbyist, political consultant, former lobbyist and political consultant. I'm currently a pilot cadet and entrepreneur. I'm learning to fly, y'all, fly planes commercially. And I'm looking forward to a good conversation.
All right. So before we get into your all's personal perspectives, I'd like to read an opinion summary on the impact of Mr. Samuel's body of work. When the news circulated about his death at 53 last week, it sparked mixed reactions from those familiar with his channel. On one hand, there were those who saw his viral comments as sexist toward women, stereotypical of men, and perpetuating a long-held divide between Black men and Black women. On the other hand, his many supporters saw Samuel as a relatable truth teller, and the critical reaction to his death as disrespectful. From fans to hate watchers, though, Samuel's appeal was his willingness to say what he wanted, however he wanted to say it. Many black men feel they were always blamed for why black men and black women can't have healthy relationships. Samuels became known for laying this perceived blame on women too. While some black men saw Samuels as a hero because he said things to women that most men weren't saying, his videos also further stoked long-held divisions in a manner that many found demeaning to black women. Popular culture started embracing black women and celebrating black love. And then here comes Kevin Samuels, who blew that to smithereens. So now we're back to being on two sides of the room, staring at each other. This summer's conclusion to me strikes a lot of similarities to the polarization amongst our country in general, in just about any social issue where we can discuss, from politics to family, race, you name it. There's going to be two polarized sides. So let's see if that holds true here in this discussion. Who would like to open up?
I tend to be the contrarian in all of our conversations, George. But I mean, I'll kick it off.
Okay.
I was a huge fan of Kevin Samuels. I watched a lot of his content, a lot of his entire content. And on one hand, I understand why he was polarizing. Most people that were not fans watched the clips. The clips were very salacious. I get it. The reason that people circulated those clips was for their salaciousness. And so that's, in my opinion, why a lot of people don't like him. But as someone that watched his content, the clips don't give a full view of his opinions and his perspective or point of view. I also understand that some of the things he did was for entertainment. So I understood that. But I think that certain titles, misogynistic, I think that those are unfair. And a lot of the stuff that he said was true. And a lot of people that when listening to him would say, well, I agree with what he's saying, I just don't like the way he says it. And so, you know, that's my opinion of him. But I think that his message was spot on. There are a few things that I didn't agree with, but I also want to point out is that the men in his example, and a lot of women pushed back against this, were men that were a level of men that most of them are never going to see or interact with. And they were pushing back against this quote unquote high value man that most men aren't. Most men aren't this high value man. Even in my income range, I don't meet his qualifications of quote unquote a high value man, number one. And number two, most of the women that were being disagreeable about what these men want aren't going to date, marry, or come in contact with these men. And so, you know, I thought that was an interesting observation. But I'm open for discussion.
Okay, so Janelle, I'm going to have to go to you because I bet you're going to say you agree with everything that Penny just said. I think you're on mute, Janelle.
That would be it. So I can actually agree and disagree with some of what Penny was saying. I actually only learned about Kevin Samuels a month before he passed. I had no idea who he was, never seen any of his YouTube videos. Nate actually told me, you need to listen to this guy. And I'm like, why? Why is it relevant to me? You know, I'm an old fashioned girl. I don't watch YouTube. I'm not into social media, everything what's going on. I just focus on my little world and that's it. But when I actually started listening to some of his commentary and some of the videos, I'm like, wow, this guy is harsh, but he's kind of speaking some truth, you know, in a sense. So I feel, you know, I'm 38 years old, pulling up to 39, just got married 2 years ago, just had my first baby. Like for me, it was a process, you know, getting to, you know, marriage and, you know, having a baby. But nowadays, I would say respectfully, most women, and he made a lot of valid points, but most women, they want to get their career out of the way. They're not focused on husband. They're not focused on kids. That was me. I was one of those women. as far as dating men in certain income brackets and, all this and that. I've dated blue collar millionaires, you name it. For me, it's all about who touches your heart, who you can build a family with. At the end of the day, I feel like if women want to get married past 35, that's fine. More or less, that's what's happening nowadays. Anyway, I'm a perfect example of that. I don't feel as though we are washed up, as Kevin mentioned, if you're used goods over 35 and you're not married. Again, I didn't get married and have my first baby till I was 37. And I plan on having more children with my husband. So it's kind of one of those things where it's like, you take it with a grain of salt. If it doesn't pertain to you, I don't let it kind of bother me. But for the women out there who are listening to this and thinking, okay, well, oh my God, he's saying I'm used goods and I'm not nothing because I'm not, dating this kind of man or this kind of, like, I just ignore all that. You have to go after, your worth, one, go after what you feel is good for you. And if it's somebody that works at the training station or if it's a doctor, or if it's a lawyer, whatever it is. So that's just my opinion so far on that.
So technically, according to Mr. Samuel's relationship book, you would be considered a modern woman party of one?
When you say party, what do you mean, like single?
I thought you were responding to that. Unmarried women who choose unmarried women 35 and older,
right?
Who are he considers, waiting to choose after 35. He calls a modern woman party of one. You're saying that you don't hold credence to that?
No, absolutely not.
Okay,
no.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, Russell.
Yeah, I think he was polarizing because basically not just what he said, but how he said it. I think if people were to go through and, I guess you could say, check his history or whatnot, and not just the viral clips, you would see a little bit more, such as he started, as far as to the best of my knowledge, he started really getting popular and trending the past year when he started saying certain things that would spark women. But previously, he did a lot of commentary about men, what they aren't doing, what their shortcomings were, and how they needed to get things together. But that didn't sell, for lack of a better term. As you notice, most people never talk about or you mention things that he said about men needing to get their affairs in order, men needing to be able to provide and things of that nature. What did spark people and get people interested or just listening to him and going viral were when women would call in. It was almost like a Maury Povich or something. Like they call in, and if you didn't know anybody, you say maybe it was scripted. They call in and they tell him what kind of man they wanted, and he'd ask them, well, how old are you? How tall are you? How much do you weigh? How much money do you make? And then he would basically go by, okay, depending on what he thought about you in that aspect, then he would tell you where your place in the dating world was, basically. I remember there was one lady who said she was 5'9", about 220. He was in her 30s, and he said, you look like Emmitt Smith, like a linebacker, like a running back, NFL running back. And, for me, him saying that, let's put it this way, had it been on stage, as a comedian, it would have been hilarious. But because of the format that it was in, people took it and said that's harsh or whatnot. But a lot of times he did, and I'm not a fan of his, so to speak, but I can divide things up and say, okay, he's got a point here. It's his delivery, because now everything is PC, so you can't say certain. You can't, for example, you can't say fat because fat is offensive. But if you are, you are. You have to say big boned or big or something. It's all the same thing, but you can't say certain things. And I just think that it was his delivery that rubbed people the wrong way. But what he did was, by rubbing people the wrong way, was he grew his following. So there was a method to his madness also. And the only reason we're talking about, and the only reason people were talking about him like this and in other avenues, or he started trending, is because he said things that were like catchphrases. He said things that would spark people because no one ever thought about or heard of high value man. Now, if you say high value man now, you automatically know what the person is theoretically talking about because he put that out there. But I don't think he was all bad. I don't think he was all good either. It was just he did what sold. I mean, that's what you do. You do what sells. I mean, you don't get over 1 million followers because you're not entertaining or you're not sparking people.
So he went to the price to the highest bidder then.
Yeah, he got. If he just told you like a counselor would do it the way and wasn't rough with it or whatnot, nobody would care. Yeah, nobody would care. It's about ratings and views.
Right. So Janelle, let me bring it back to you.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to put you in the uncomfortable or comfortable position based on how you look at it, of speaking for the women in our community at large. Do they have a point in their issues with Kevin Samuels? And if so, what would those points be?
I would say, and let me piggyback on what Russell said before I answer that question, George. I feel as though it was more entertainment. It's no different from going to a comedy show and someone cracking jokes. And then guess what? That's your favorite comedian because a couple jokes resonated with you and now you follow that person. I think Kevin Samuels, he definitely was an entertainer. Yeah, he spoke some things that were harsh. He spoke some things that were true and untrue. They resonated with some people and they didn't resonate with other people. But at the end of the day, I think that, for me, the lens I look at it as it's just entertainment.
Okay.
But to answer your question, I think the women who may have taken it personally are women who actually are living that truth, right? Or, they're not where they want to be in their relationship status or in their life. And, he kind of said something that kind of, struck a nerve, if you will. I think the women who are confident with who they are and their stance in life and their relationship status, whether they're single, married, divorced, whatever, like I said earlier, you kind of just take it with a grain of salt. Because I'm not going to lose any sleep based on what someone said, who I'll never meet him. I'll never probably meet any of these people that he was interviewing. So why would I let it affect me? So that's just the way I think about it. So,
and what do you feel his impact has been on women and men relationships in view of your perspective? Has he been a positive force or has he been a divisive source?
I would say a little bit of both. At the end of the day, if we can't figure out how to come together and love each other more, especially in Black relationships, because you don't see a lot of married Black people nowadays, right? Then we have to figure out a way to collectively, come together and try to work with each other rather than against each other. That's just my opinion. I wouldn't look at a Black man and say, well, I'm not going to go for him because of his social status or, he's been to prison or what have you. For me personally, it's like, to have a good relationship with someone is based on, your compatibility and, other factors that will keep you together for the long term. So some of the things that he was saying, I think were a little bit irrelevant. And it's just really just a case by case basis. So.
Interesting. That it's really striking to hear you speak from that perspective in view of I very rarely have met any of the women in our community speak highly or positive of Kevin Samuels. And I would say that, not all of the women that I am thinking about would be, I would consider them high value. I would consider them women of substance, accomplished. However, he tends to trigger them more. So I'm really surprised or,
Black Space, a safe space for our community.